The story begins on a somber afternoon with the deafening stillness of a graveyard blanketed in mist. A dog sits by the side of a freshly dug grave, its eyes fixed on the wooden coffin. The dog hasn't moved for hours, its fur matted and its body stiff, yet it remains unwavering. The wind carries a soft rustling of leaves, but the dog is unaware. The people who pass by barely notice the animal, too caught up in their own world. It's as though the dog is holding its own silent funeral for the girl inside the coffin. There's a sorrowful energy in the air, thick and heavy. The dog's every breath seems to echo louder in the empty space, but there is no one to comfort it, no one to understand. Until a group of bikers, passing through the cemetery on their way to a nearby rally, stop and take notice of the dog. One of them, a man named Jake, feels an undeniable tug in his heart. He approaches the dog cautiously, uncertain of what he'll find. But there is something unmistakably familiar in the dog's gaze. The quiet desperation of an animal waiting for someone who will never return. The bikers, intrigued by the dog's devotion, decide to investigate further. They gather around, exchanging stories and speculations, trying to understand why the dog won't leave. It's Jake who first suggests that the dog might be mourning a lost owner. The cemetery is not far from a small town, and rumors of a young girl named Emma, tragically killed in an accident, begin to surface. As they dig deeper, they uncover the heartbreaking tale of Emma, a bright-eyed teenager who had always been inseparable from her dog Daisy. The girl had been in a car crash while on her way to visit a sick relative. Daisy had been the only one to witness it, and it's said that the dog was by her side until the very end. The bikers listen in silence, the weight of the story settling over them. They realize that Daisy's bond with Emma was far stronger than any of them had imagined. They feel an intense need to do something, anything, to help the dog, to give Daisy the peace it had been searching for. Jake and the bikers agree to stay a little longer, keeping an eye on Daisy. They set up camp not far from the grave, watching from a distance. The hours pass, and as night falls, a cold chill settles in the air. Daisy's mourning becomes more intense. It paces in small circles around the grave, whining softly, its eyes never leaving the coffin. One of the bikers, a woman named Maria, notices something strange, a piece of paper fluttering in the wind near the grave. It's a crumpled, handwritten letter, its edges torn and faded. When they read it aloud, they find that it is a letter from Emma, addressed to her beloved dog, Daisy. The letter speaks of a deep love and promises that they would always be together. But the final words are chilling. "I know you'll stay with me, even when I'm gone." It's then that they realize the shocking truth. Daisy has not only lost her owner, but it's as though the dog has been waiting for days for a promise that it can never fulfill. Maria's voice falters as she reads the letter out loud, her heart breaking at the raw grief of the situation. The bikers are left in stunned silence, overwhelmed by the weight of Emma's words and the depth of Daisy's loyalty. Determined to give Daisy a sense of closure, Jake decides they need to honor the bond between the dog and the girl. The bikers band together, deciding to give Daisy a proper memorial, one that would finally allow her to let go. They begin to gather flowers, candles, and other items, creating a small, peaceful memorial by the grave. As they work, the wind picks up, rustling the trees above. Daisy watches them, its eyes filled with confusion and longing. It's as if the dog doesn't understand why they are doing this. But when they finish, they step back and watch as the dog slowly approaches the makeshift memorial. There's a moment of silence, and then Daisy places its nose gently against the flowers. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, Daisy stops crying. It's as though the dog has finally understood that its beloved Emma is gone. But there's still something more to be done. The bikers, now fully invested in the dog's journey, decide that Daisy should be given a new life, one where it could heal and be loved again. It's a slow, tender process, but Daisy begins to respond to the care of the bikers. They become its new family, not as a replacement, but as a group who understands its pain. The bikers return to the grave one last time, this time with Daisy by their side. The dog walks slowly, its once mournful steps now steady and sure. They gather around the grave, each placing a hand on the dog's head. There's a quiet understanding between them all. The bond that Daisy had shared with Emma is one that no amount of time can erase. But Daisy has found a way to move forward, with the help of those who saw its pain and stepped in when no one else would. The sun sets low in the sky, casting long shadows across the graveyard. As the bikers stand together, the dog lying peacefully at their feet, there is a sense of closure, a sense of peace that has eluded Daisy for so long. The wind whispers through the trees, and for a moment, it feels as though Emma is still there, watching over the dog she loved so dearly. Daisy finally lays its head down, and a single tear slips down its fur, a silent acknowledgement that while the past will never be forgotten, it's time to begin a new chapter. As the bikers look on, they know that Daisy has found peace, and in a way, so have they. The story of the dog and the girl, their bond too deep to break, will live on in their hearts forever. The days following the memorial are a blur of gentle healing. Jake and Maria, along with the other bikers, have taken Daisy into their fold. The dog, now with its collar removed and replaced by a new one from Jake, seems to understand that it is safe. The bikers have not only given Daisy the chance to grieve, but they are now teaching it how to live again, how to let go of the haunting sorrow that had shackled it to the past. Daisy moves slowly at first, uncertain in its new surroundings. It doesn't know these faces, these voices, and yet there is something in them that feels familiar, like a flicker of light in a room that's been dark for far too long. They drive through the open road, the wind in their hair, the hum of their bikes filling the air. Daisy, sitting in the back of the truck, is unsure of its place, but every so often it looks up at them, its eyes searching. It's as if the dog wants to ask, "Is this where I belong now?" The bikers never rush Daisy. They never force it to take steps forward before it's ready. They let Daisy lead, trusting that, in time, it will find its way back to itself, back to joy. Jake and Maria especially are the ones who take the time to sit with Daisy, in the stillness of their campfires and the quiet of their evening rides. They watch as the dog learns to trust again, to enjoy the sound of laughter, to relax in the warmth of a hand on its fur. It's Maria who first sees the change. One afternoon, as they sit by the fire, Daisy stands up, stretches, and then walks over to Maria. Without hesitation, the dog presses its head gently against her knee. It's not just a gesture of affection, it's an invitation to bond. Daisy wants to be loved again. And for the first time since Emma's death, Maria feels the soft weight of the dog's trust, the slow, tentative peace that's starting to bloom between them. "Hey girl," Maria whispers, her voice full of warmth. "I see you. You're not alone anymore." Daisy nuzzles deeper into her touch, its body relaxing for the first time in what seems like forever. Maria smiles, feeling a sense of fulfillment wash over her, knowing that this moment is one of many yet to come. Daisy, the broken dog from the cemetery, is beginning to heal. Jake watches from across the fire, his heart swelling with an emotion he hasn't felt in years. He's seen loss, he's felt the sting of death, but there's something about Daisy's quiet resilience that touches him in a way he never expected. The dog, so deeply tied to the past, is finally starting to shed its grief. And in that shedding, it is becoming whole again. By the time they reach their next stop, a quiet town near the mountains, Daisy is a different dog. The hesitation is still there, the scars of the past, but they are beginning to fade like old wounds that time has begun to heal. The bikers, too, have found something in this journey, a sense of family, of purpose, of caring for something larger than themselves. And with Daisy, they've learned the true meaning of resilience, of love, and of letting go. They stop at a small diner, the kind with checkered floors and the hum of conversation that fills the air. Jake walks in first, his boots clicking on the linoleum, followed by Maria, and then Daisy, who hesitates at the door. For a moment, the dog stands there, sniffing the air, unsure. The warmth of the room feels so foreign, the hustle of the people so different from the lonely silence of the graveyard. But then Jake turns around, smiles, and extends his hand. "Come on, Daisy," he says gently. "You belong here too." Daisy's ears perk up, and with a slow, deliberate step it enters, its tail giving a tentative wag. Inside the diner, there's a moment of silence as the patrons look at the dog, but it's not the kind of silence that comes with judgment. It's the silence of wonder, of understanding. And in that moment, Daisy finds something it never thought it would have again. A place in the world where it's welcome, where it doesn't have to mourn, where it can simply exist. It's not just the dog who has found peace. The bikers, too, have learned that healing doesn't always happen in grand gestures. Sometimes, it's in the small moments, the quiet ones, the ones that make you feel like you've been waiting your whole life for this very second. And as they sit down to eat, Daisy by their feet, a sense of calm settles over them. They know that, despite the scars, they are all moving forward together. And in that quiet, small-town diner, they find what they've all been searching for, the beauty of a second chance. Daisy's healing journey continues in the months that follow. With the bikers as her family, Daisy begins to explore the world with new eyes, no longer tethered to the shadows of the past. They take her on road trips to quiet parks, and even to a beach once, where Daisy runs along the shoreline, the waves crashing at her paws. The sight is breathtaking, the joy in her eyes so pure it takes Jake's breath away. It's clear now that Daisy has not just moved on from Emma's death, she has embraced life again. With the bikers, she finds her rhythm, her place in the world. And as time passes, her once heavy steps become lighter, quicker, filled with the enthusiasm of a dog who has remembered what it means to be happy. One evening, as the sun dips low on the horizon, Jake sits on the porch of their new home, a small cabin tucked in the woods, watching Daisy run through the tall grass. She stops for a moment, looks back at him, and then continues, her tail wagging in a way that makes him smile. There's a sense of peace in the way she moves now, the kind of peace that only comes after long days of struggle and healing. "She's come a long way, hasn't she?" Maria says, joining him on the porch. Jake nods, his eyes soft. "Yeah, we all have." Daisy runs into the yard, her playful barks ringing through the air, a joyful sound that cuts through the silence of the evening. It's the sound of a dog who has finally found its way home, not to the graveyard where she once waited, but to a place where love and healing are found every day. As the sun sets and the sky is painted with hues of orange and purple, Jake watches Daisy one last time. The dog pauses, looks up at him, and for a moment, they just stand there looking at each other. There's no need for words. There's nothing left to say. The past is behind them, and the future is bright. Daisy turns, her paws kicking up the soft grass as she runs off toward the horizon. Jake smiles, knowing that no matter where she goes, she will always be a part of this journey, a part of their family. And in that moment, as the last light of the day fades away, he feels the weight of their bond, unbreakable, unspoken, and everlasting. The wind carries her scent, and Jake knows that Daisy has finally found the peace she so deserved. As the weeks turn into months, Daisy's presence in the bikers' lives becomes a symbol of quiet strength and resilience. The journey that began with grief and loss has transformed into one of hope and rediscovery. The group of bikers, once strangers to one another, have become something more, a family bound by shared experience and the simple, yet profound act of caring for another living being. They ride through small towns, their bikes roaring along the open roads, Daisy now confidently perched in the back of the truck, her eyes scanning the world with curiosity, as though she's finally seeing it for the first time. Every journey feels new, every landscape an opportunity for a fresh start. The air smells different. It's filled with the scent of pine forests, salt water from distant shores, and the sweet, earthy aroma of wildflowers. Daisy inhales deeply, her nose twitching in the breeze. It's as though the world is full of life again, and Daisy is learning how to be a part of it, not as a grieving soul, but as a dog full of possibility. One morning, they find themselves riding through the rolling hills of a quiet, almost forgotten village. The sun is low in the sky, casting golden rays that seem to dance across the landscape. They stop for a break at a local diner, one that's tucked away from the main road, with faded signs and a welcoming porch. Daisy hops out of the truck and trots alongside the bikers, her tail high, her body confident. At the diner, the owner, an older woman with weathered hands and a warm smile, watches as Daisy approaches. "That's a fine dog you've got there," she says, her eyes softening as Daisy sits by her feet. There's a gentleness in the way the woman speaks, a quiet recognition that Daisy has been through something monumental. "We've had her for a while now," Maria says, smiling down at the dog, who seems to glow with a calm that wasn't there before. "She's been through a lot." The woman nods knowingly, her gaze shifting from Daisy to the bikers. "We all have," she murmurs. Then, with a small chuckle, she adds, "But some of us have a way of finding what we need, even when we're not looking for it." As the bikers sit at the table, Daisy rests her head in the woman's lap. The soft clink of coffee cups and the quiet chatter of the diner fade into the background as Jake looks out the window, his mind wandering. The path that had once felt so uncertain now feels like a well-worn trail. They're not just passing through the world anymore, they're a part of it. And Daisy, the dog who had once been tethered to sorrow, is now a living testament to the power of healing and second chances. In that moment, the bikers realize that their journey has become more than just about Daisy. It's about each of them finding the strength to face their own battles, to heal from their own wounds. They've all carried burdens, emotional, physical, or otherwise, and together they've learned to release them, to let go of the past and embrace the future. A year has passed since the bikers first met Daisy at the graveyard. The wounds of the past are now distant memories, fading like the last traces of night before the dawn. Daisy, now a picture of vitality and joy, has found her place in the world. She's no longer a dog broken by loss, she's a dog full of life, bounding through fields with a newfound sense of freedom. The bikers have moved into a small, rustic house on the outskirts of the town. It's a far cry from the noise of the city or the endless highways, but it's perfect for them. The house is surrounded by trees, a large yard where Daisy can run, and the quiet hum of nature fills the air. Jake, Maria, and the rest of the group have made it a home. A home not just for them, but for Daisy too. Daisy spends her days chasing after the bikers as they work around the property, her paws kicking up the soft dirt as she runs alongside them. At night, she curls up by the fireplace, her tail wrapped around her body, her eyes half closed in contentment. The sound of the fire crackling fills the silence, a soft reminder of the warmth that now surrounds them all. One evening, as they sit outside under the starry sky, Jake looks over at Daisy, who is lying at his feet, gazing up at the sky. The same sky that once felt so empty to the dog is now filled with endless possibilities. She's no longer staring at the grave where her past lies buried. Instead, she's looking up at the future, her eyes filled with hope, her heart open. She's come so far, Jake says quietly, his voice tinged with wonder. Maria nods, her gaze fixed on the dog. "We all have," she replies, her words soft but full of meaning. "We just needed to find each other." As the night deepens, the stars above seem to shine a little brighter, as if they're witnessing the quiet triumph of a dog who once knew only loss, and the bikers who helped her rediscover the world. They've found healing, not just in their journey but in each other. Daisy lifts her head, her ears perked up at the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. For the first time in a long while, there is no sadness in her eyes, no longing, no fear. There is only the quiet, contented peace of a dog who knows she's home. The road ahead is uncertain, as it always is. But for Daisy, for Jake, for Maria, and for the rest of the bikers, it doesn't matter anymore. They've learned to take life one step at a time, 1 mile at a time, and to find the beauty in the journey, no matter how long or winding it may be. And as the firelight flickers, casting shadows on the walls of their little home, Daisy rests her head on Jake's knee. The sound of the night is the only thing that fills the air, the quiet, steady rhythm of a family that has found its way together. It's been a few more months since they moved into their new home, and the seasons have shifted, bringing with them the crispness of autumn. The air smells of fallen leaves, and the trees have begun to shed their vibrant foliage, preparing for the winter ahead. Daisy, now fully adjusted to her new life, races through the yard, her paws kicking up the earth as she plays with Jake and Maria. There's a lightness in her step now, a joy that was once lost to her, but is now fully embraced. She has learned to let go of the past, to find happiness in the present, and to trust in the love that surrounds her. Her bond with Jake and Maria has deepened, becoming a quiet, unspoken understanding of what it means to be a family. The bikers still visit occasionally, the group of friends who had once shared in Daisy's grief, now sharing in her joy. They come together to celebrate birthdays, holidays, and the simple moments of life that are often overlooked. And with each visit, Daisy's heart swells a little more, a little fuller, as if she knows that she is loved, that she belongs, and that the pain of her past no longer defines her. One evening, as the sun sets behind the mountains, painting the sky with hues of pink and orange, Jake sits on the porch, Daisy resting at his feet. The world is quiet, save for the soft rustling of the leaves in the wind. And for the first time in a long while, Jake feels at peace. Daisy looks up at him, her eyes soft and trusting, and in that moment, Jake realizes that this is what it's all been about, not the destination, but the journey. The dog that had once been lost, the girl who had loved her, and the bikers who had stepped in to help had all found their way to this moment, together. And as the stars begin to twinkle above, Jake whispers, "We made it, girl, we made it." Daisy's tail gives a gentle thump on the porch, a soft acknowledgement of the love that has brought them here. The road ahead is uncertain, but for the first time, neither of them feels afraid of it. Because they've found their home, and they've found each other. And that, Jake knows, is everything. The years pass in the blink of an eye. The seasons return in their endless cycle, each one bringing something new and unexpected. But in the little cabin tucked away on the outskirts of town, life feels suspended in a quiet harmony. The air grows cooler as winter sets in, but inside the house, warmth lingers. The sound of the crackling fire has become a familiar comfort, as has the rhythmic ticking of the old clock on the wall. Daisy, now older and slower, lies by the hearth, her once vibrant energy dimming but still full of love. Jake and Maria watch as Daisy sleeps. The rise and fall of her chest a gentle reminder of the dog that once wandered the graveyard, waiting for a promise to be kept. They've watched her grow from a broken creature into a beloved companion, and in return, she's given them something they never knew they needed. A deeper sense of meaning, a deeper understanding of love, and the quiet wisdom that comes from healing. It's a Sunday afternoon when it happens. Jake and Maria are outside, enjoying the crisp air and the last remnants of fall, when they hear a soft whine from the house. They look at each other, the unease creeping into their hearts. They know, without speaking, that this day has come. They rush inside to find Daisy struggling to stand. Her legs tremble and her eyes, once so full of light, are now heavy with the weight of years. The dog is tired in a way that no amount of rest can fix. She turns her head slowly toward them, her eyes meeting theirs with an unspoken understanding. "I think she's ready," Maria whispers, her voice thick with emotion. Jake kneels beside Daisy, placing his hand gently on her head. The dog's fur is soft, though thinner than before, and her breathing is labored. For a moment, there's silence, a sacred silence, as Jake remembers everything they've been through together. The dark, empty cemetery, the cold, barren road, the miles and miles they've ridden side by side. And now this. "I'll be right here, girl," Jake says softly, his voice trembling. "We've come so far. You've given me everything. You're not alone anymore." Daisy, despite her weakening body, nudges her nose into his hand, her tail giving the faintest wag. It's a gesture of reassurance, as though she's saying goodbye in the only way she knows how, with the same quiet loyalty that had first drawn Jake to her all those months ago. Maria kneels beside them, her tears falling freely now as she whispers, "You've been our family, Daisy. You've taught us more than we could ever repay." The house is filled with the sound of their quiet sobs, the warmth of the fire flickering as Daisy closes her eyes for the last time. And in that final moment, there is no fear, no pain. There is only peace, a peace that has been earned through years of love, healing, and growth. The days that follow are filled with mourning. The bikers, who had come to see Daisy as part of their own tribe, gather together once again. They ride out to the cabin, their bikes cutting through the cool winter air like a chorus of mourning, a tribute to the dog who had transformed their lives. They all remember the first time they met Daisy, the broken animal by the grave, and the way she had silently begged them to help. They remember the warmth she brought to their cold nights, the light in her eyes as she learned to love again. The bikers decide to honor Daisy in a way that is as bold and wild as she had been. They ride together to the old cemetery, the place where Daisy's journey had started. There, in a small, quiet corner of the graveyard, they bury a small plaque with Daisy's name etched into the metal. Daisy, a heart that healed a family. Beneath the plaque, they plant a tree, an oak, strong and steady, to represent the resilience that Daisy had embodied in life. As they stand around the tree, a chill breeze sweeps through the cemetery, carrying with it the faintest whisper of a memory. The bikers exchange glances, their faces softened by the grief that lingers, but also the understanding that they are part of something greater now. They aren't just a group of strangers on bikes anymore. They are a family formed not just by blood, but by a love that transcends time, loss, and heartache. As the bikers ride away from the cemetery, the wind begins to pick up, and the trees sway gently, their leaves rustling in the quiet stillness. It's as if the world itself is acknowledging Daisy's passing, not with sorrow, but with a quiet reverence, the kind reserved for the animals who touch our lives in ways we can't fully explain. Jake looks over at Maria, who's riding beside him, her face set with a mixture of sadness and peace. "She gave us everything," he says softly, his voice steady despite the weight in his chest. "Everything." Maria nods, a smile playing at the corners of her lips. "And she'll never be gone." "Not really." They ride in silence for a while, their bikes roaring down the winding road, the sky above stretching out into an endless canvas of blue. It's a feeling of finality, but also one of beginning. The road is still long ahead, and there are still miles to ride, but now there's a new understanding, a new kind of love between them. They carry Daisy with them in everything they do, in their laughter, their rides, their quiet moments of reflection. And as they ride into the setting sun, they know that her spirit is alive in all of them. Daisy, the dog who had once been lost, is now part of something eternal. Her journey, and the journey of those who loved her, will live on in the stories they tell, in the memories they carry, and in the legacy of a family that learned how to heal together. And as they ride into the horizon, one final thought crosses Jake's mind, a truth that feels as undeniable as the road beneath them. Some bonds never break. They only grow stronger with time. The wind whispers through the trees, and for a brief moment, Jake swears he can hear a soft bark in the distance. The wind carries Daisy's spirit forward, and the journey continues. As the days passed and the bikers continued their journey, the weight of Daisy's absence became more palpable. They had lost a piece of themselves, but in that loss, they had gained something deeper, more meaningful. It was as if Daisy had taught them not just how to love, but how to let go, how to honor the past while still moving forward. On the morning of the final ride, the one they had planned to honor Daisy and her life, there was an unspoken tension in the air. They were heading to the cemetery, a place that had once been filled with grief, but now held the memories of the dog that had saved them in so many ways. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting long shadows and bathing the world in golden light. The air was crisp, almost perfect, as the bikers gathered around the graveyard. The trees stood tall around them, their branches gently swaying, as if they were bowing in respect. Jake was the first to speak, his voice quiet but firm. "She showed us something we didn't even know we needed. The way she loved us. Without question, without hesitation, it made us better. We didn't know we were lost until we met her." Maria, standing next to him, wiped a tear from her cheek. "She didn't just heal, she gave. She gave us her heart, and she made us stronger. Her spirit will live with us in everything we do. In every ride, every turn on this road, we'll carry her with us." They stood together for a moment, a group of once ordinary strangers now bound by something far deeper than shared interests. They weren't just a club anymore, they were family. And Daisy had been their bridge, the one who reminded them of the power of love, the need for second chances, and the beauty of living fully, despite the scars that life may leave. As they left the cemetery that day, the bikers felt lighter, not in the sense of letting go, but in knowing that Daisy was at peace. Her legacy, her unconditional love, was etched into the very fabric of their lives. They rode together into the fading light of the evening, the wind in their hair, their hearts heavy but full. The road ahead was long, but they now knew that no matter how far they went, no matter how many miles they traveled, they would never be alone. Daisy's spirit would be there with them, guiding them through the winding paths of life. In the distance, the sun sank lower, the sky painted with hues of purple and orange. And as they continued down the road, the sound of their bikes faded into the horizon, a silent tribute to the dog who had shown them that love, no matter how fleeting, is worth every moment. The world may have lost Daisy, but in the hearts of those who had loved her, she would never truly be gone. And in that truth, the bikers found comfort. Because sometimes, it's not the destination that matters, but the journey, and the souls we meet along the way who change everything. As the night sky stretched wide above them, with the stars beginning to twinkle, Jake smiled softly. "We're still here, girl. Still together." And somewhere, beyond the road, beyond the mountains, the wind carried a soft bark, a quiet reminder that some bonds never truly break. They only grow stronger with time.